I'm now joined live from Harvard University by Lindsay Jaacks. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, she's the assistant professor of global health. Lindsay, thanks very much. Welcome to the program. I just came back from China not terribly long ago, and you are seeing, especially in the larger cities, heavier children walking around. When you start talking about obesity, fast food, junk foods, drinks loaded with calories come to mind, what effect will McDonald's and Starbucks, striving to move into the lower tier cities, have on China's waistline?
Yeah, it's a great question. And while I think it's an interesting observation that they are expanding to tier 2 cities, it's not actually my major concern, these Western fast food companies. I think that some of the corporations that we're most concerned about in the obesity prevention world are actually manufacturers of ultra-processed foods, so things like the sugary beverages and sort of the ultra-processed junk foods, snack foods that are pervasive all over China and many developing countries. And there are kind of two reasons for that. The first is that we're seeing big increases in rural areas, and there certainly aren't Starbucks and McDonald's in most rural areas of China. But we're still seeing big increases in obesity in those parts. And also the vast majority of fast food restaurants in urban centers in China and India and other developing countries are not actually these Western food companies, but national companies, Chinese fast food companies.
Exactly.
So I think we've got to think outside the box.
And we also talk about this massive growing middle class in China, but the simple fact is with that comes more disposable income, which means more money to fritter away here and there on burgers, sandwiches, chips that you talked about. Is that a problem?
Yeah, so I think it's only a problem if you do have the environments where you have easy access to these cheap and unhealthy foods. It's not a problem to have disposable income if you have ready access to cheap and super healthy foods and less access to the unhealthy things. So I don't see the rise in disposable income as the issue, but rather the environments in which people are spending that disposable income.
Now, what about schools? So they have such an overriding effect on young Chinese students. Do you see schools playing a greater role in getting kids, children, to recognize the concerns of loading up on all this junk?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think schools play a role, and there's a lot of evidence that having healthy food environments in school and physical activity, protected time for physical activity in schools like recess can help with prevention of obesity. But I think a really important piece is actually parental modeling of healthy behaviors. It doesn't really matter if you learn these things in school, if you get home and your parents or your grandparents are modeling unhealthy behaviors or bringing unhealthy things into the home environment. So I think it has to be really a double-pronged approach where you're working with families, working with parents to make the home environment healthy, and then working with schools to make that environment healthy.
You know, it's interesting when you talk about the parental modeling because, China is really, in a way, two very different nations, one modern and growing, the other very poor and very much developing. History shows that poor people often face unhealthy and even carb-heavy diets. When you get to an area where that's all they have to eat, is that the same in China? Are you concerned about that, the low income and the diet of the low income?
Yeah, we are, and we're increasingly seeing actually this switch where we are seeing a higher prevalence, especially in urban areas, of obesity among poorer individuals. And that is really mirroring what we see in places like the US, the UK, and other Western European countries. And so having access to affordable, healthy foods is a big part of that, and kind of alleviating some of the social determinants of like the stress environments that those individuals are facing, I think will be a big part of it too.
This is one thing that's always interested me. When you talk about heading off obesity, do overweight children, as they get older, do they tend to be able to shed that weight as they grow, or is it difficult to trim down after an adolescence characterized by bad eating?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's very difficult to lose weight as you get older. And actually, the strongest predictor of your current weight status was your weight status, 5 years ago. And so it's really important to prevent that weight gain early on in life because there's not much evidence that those kids are going to lose it in adulthood. And we see this at the population level too, where we haven't seen any countries around the world that have seen big declines in weight or in obesity. And so preventing that weight gain is really critical because getting it off once you've gained it is challenging.
Great information. Lindsay Jaacks with Harvard University, Assistant Professor of Global Health. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.